Imagine this. You were the most powerful woman in England, queen for 24 years. You give birth 6 times trying to secure the succession, and one day your husband, the king, decides he doesn't want you anymore. But the people take to the streets to defend your honor. This is the story of Catherine of Aragon, the Spanish queen who faced the most feared man in Europe and never bowed down. Today you'll discover why her legacy lives on 500 years later. Catherine of Aragon wasn't just any queen. She was the daughter of the Catholic monarchs, a warrior, diplomat, regent of England, and the first female ambassador in European history. But her name was marked by one of the most scandalous marital breakups of the 16th century, a divorce that literally changed the course of religion in England and divided Europe. What's fascinating about Catherine is that while Henry VIII rejected, humiliated, and separated her from her daughter, the English people adored her. Women took to the streets shouting her name, nobles murmured against the king, and Catherine, with unshakable dignity, refused to be erased from history. Today we're going to learn the true story of this extraordinary woman, from her arrival in England as a teenager to her death in exile, loved by everyone except the man who swore to protect her. But before we continue, let me tell you something almost no one knows. Catherine of Aragon once commanded an English army and won a decisive battle while her husband was partying in France. Want to know how? Keep watching. Catherine was born in 1485 at the Archbishop's Palace of Alcalá de Henares, Spain. She was the daughter of Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon, the monarchs who unified Spain and financed Christopher Columbus's voyage. From childhood, Catherine was educated like no other European princess of her time. She spoke Latin, French, English, studied theology, philosophy, and canon law. Her mother, Isabella, made sure her daughters were as prepared as any prince. At age 3, Catherine was already betrothed to Arthur, Prince of Wales, and heir to the English throne. It was a perfect strategic alliance. It united Spain with England against their common enemy, France. In 1501, barely 16 years old, Catherine left Spain forever and traveled to England to marry. The wedding was spectacular. Arthur and Catherine married at St. Paul's Cathedral in London before thousands of people. But happiness lasted only 5 months. Arthur died suddenly, probably from an illness known as English sweating sickness. Catherine was left a widow, alone in a foreign country, penniless, and turned into an awkward diplomatic peace. This is where the drama begins. Arthur's father, Henry VIII, didn't want to return the enormous dowry that Spain had paid, so he devised a plan: marry Catherine to his other son, Henry, who was now the heir. There was a problem. The church forbade a man from marrying his brother's widow, but with money and politics at stake, they obtained a special papal dispensation. Catherine waited 7 years in a kind of limbo, living almost in poverty, before finally, in 1509, the young Henry VIII ascended the throne and married her. He was 17, she was 23, and at first it was a happy marriage. Henry was in love with Catherine. She was intelligent, cultured, beautiful, and had a royal presence he admired. In the early years, Catherine was much more than a consort. When Henry departed for war against France in 1513, he left Catherine as regent of England. And that's when something extraordinary happened. The Scots, taking advantage of the king's absence, invaded northern England. And here comes the incredible part. If you're enjoying this story, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Every week we bring fascinating stories of people who changed the world. Don't miss the next episodes. As I was saying, the Scots invaded. Catherine didn't stay in the palace crying. She put on armor, mounted a horse, gathered an army, and rode north. She gave an epic speech to the troops in the style of her mother, Isabella the Catholic, and led the defense of the realm. The result was the Battle of Flodden Field, a crushing victory for England. Scottish King James IV died in combat, and Catherine sent his bloodied coat to Henry as a trophy. This woman was a force of nature, but her greatest challenge wouldn't be military, but personal. Catherine became pregnant 6 times, but only one daughter survived, Mary, future Mary I of England. Henry desperately wanted a male heir, and with each failed pregnancy, the pressure mounted. In 1525, after 16 years of marriage, Henry became obsessed with Anne Boleyn, a young lady-in-waiting to the Queen. Henry wanted to divorce Catherine, but he couldn't simply leave her. He needed a legal reason. So he argued that his marriage to Catherine had been invalid from the beginning because she had been married to his brother. According to him, God was punishing him by not giving him a male heir. Catherine flatly refused. She swore before God, before the Pope, and before all England that her marriage to Arthur had never been consummated, that she had come to Henry VIII's bed as a virgin, and she clung to her title as legitimate queen with unwavering tenacity. What followed was the Great Matter, a scandal that lasted years and divided Europe. Henry pressured Pope Clement VII to annul the marriage, but Catherine was the niece of Emperor Charles V, the most powerful man in Europe, and the Pope didn't dare offend him. The case dragged on, and Henry grew desperate. Meanwhile, something extraordinary was happening in England. The people loved Catherine. When she appeared in public, thousands cheered her. Women especially saw her as one of them, an abandoned wife, humiliated but dignified. There were protests, petitions, and even threats of rebellion if Henry divorced her. But Henry VIII was a man accustomed to getting his way. In 1533, tired of waiting for the Pope, he made a radical decision. He broke with the Catholic Church, declared himself head of the Church of England, and married Anne Boleyn. Catherine was demoted to Dowager Princess of Wales and banished from court. They took away her daughter, Mary, and forbade her from seeing her. Catherine spent her final years in cold, damp castles, sick, alone, but never defeated. She continued to sign her letters as Catherine, Queen of England. She refused to accept any other title. She lived in poverty with barely a few loyal ladies-in-waiting, but maintained her dignity until the end. In January 1536, Catherine died at age 50 in Kimbolton Castle. Her last words were for Henry in a moving letter where she told him, "Mine eyes desire you above all things." Despite everything, she had loved him. When news of her death arrived, Henry VIII dressed in yellow and celebrated, but the English people mourned. Thousands attended her funeral. Catherine was buried at Peterborough Cathedral, and even today, almost 500 years later, people leave pomegranates, the symbol of the Catholic monarchs, at her tomb. Catherine of Aragon was rejected by the king who swore her eternal love, but revered by the people who recognized her worth. She was a woman ahead of her time, educated, a warrior, regent, and defender of her principles to her last breath. Her daughter, Mary, became Queen of England, and although history remembers her harshly, she inherited some of that strength from Catherine. Catherine's story teaches us that true power doesn't lie in crowns or titles, but in the dignity with which we face adversity. She lost everything except her honor, and that no one could take from her. If this story has moved you as much as it has me, subscribe to the channel and leave me in the comments which other historical figure you'd like me to cover. Share this video so more people can learn the true story of Catherine of Aragon. See you in the next episode. Until next time.